Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma Tzadi Dalet. We got up to the 8th line off the top of the Amid, and we are in the midst of a listing presented by Abaye. I'll give you a list of many Tanoim, many Shitas, that Shinoi, when an item, when material undergoes some sort of change, some sort of transformation, it will still maintain its former status. Many opinions, but in different contexts, meaning each Tana is speaking about a different concept, but bottom line is, the underlying principle permeating all these situations is Shinoi is not koine. Shinoi is not to be reckoned with. Just because there was a change, we still view it as the original item. And there are several, many applications of this idea. We had a couple mentioned yesterday, and we continue on our list with Rabbi Yehuda ben Yaakov. Mahi, where do we find that opinion? The Sanya, Rabbi Yehuda ben Yaakov, we have a fellow who robbed. He stole an amount of a saw of wheat. Tachna, he ground it. Lasha, he kneaded it into a dough. Often he baked it. And he goes and he does a mitzvah. In his mind, he's doing a mitzvah now. He's separating challah for the kohen. Keitzad nevarech. This fellow shouldn't be making a bracha, typically a bracha which is said when you do the hafrashas challah. How can he do that? Ein ze mevarech. That's not a proper bracha. Eliminate. It's blasphemy. It's just the opposite of a bracha, since it involves a stolen item. Boitzeya, says Rashi, is a goizel. Boitzeya betza, pasuk of Mishlei Aleph. So if this robber uses his goods to thank Hashem, to minvarech Hashem, it has the opposite effect. It's not a bracha, it's just the opposite. Now, even though this fellow stole what? He stole wheat. This bread here is not the original wheat. It's a totally different entity. No. We treat it as though this is the item that he stole. This is the stolen goods, in which case a bracha is not appropriate. So clearly, even though there was a shinoi, we don't care. We still see the original item right here. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Mahi, where do we find his shita? That shinoi, transformation, is not to be reckoned with. The Sanya Klalze, Amar Rabbi Shimon Elazar. We have this rule in terms of a gazlan. Kol shvach shishbiach gazlan, yadai al hel yaina. Let's say the gazlan improved the item that he stole, so he has the upper hand. We give him the choice of what, how to deal with it. If he wants, he can demand that his victim, pays the additional, the added value that was added to the item. Or if he chooses, he can just say, here, take your item back as is. Now, my Kamma, what are we saying here? Typically, the lashon haresh l'chalav anecha, that phrase denotes, potential loss. Meaning, look, I know it's not the same thing, but it dropped in value, but it's ultimately your item. Take it back. It's your problem. But here, it doesn't really fit, because if anything, the item went up in value, and the former owner will receive more than he lost. So how does Haresh L'chol Fanecha fit in this context? He means like this. Two different cases. Hishbicha, if the Ganav's effort brought about an increase in value, so the Ganav can demand that in return. Kachash, but if it went down in value, let's say it's an animal, right? And it instead of going up in value due to proper feeding and stuffing, right? It's the opposite. He overworked the animal. It dropped in value. So it got weakened, and therefore it's worth less. In this case, here, take your animal back. Because although the thing went down in value, whatever naturally deteriorated, it's worth less today. It's an animal that got older and weaker. So even though there was a shinui, the Gazlan is not kind of the animal, which would require him to pay based on the original value. No, even after the Gzela was nishtana, it changed. It took on a sort of new form. It's still considered the original item, and the Gazlan can fulfill his obligation of returning the stolen item by just giving this back as is. So, what about the other case? If he brought about an increase in value, so he should still be required to give it back as is, despite the fact that there was a shina. It still belongs to the owner. Amri's answer was given on that. The truth is that based on the strict law of Hashavas, he would have to give it back as is. He wouldn't be able to demand compensation for that additional value. Takanas Hashavim dictates otherwise. We want to encourage a robber to do teshuvah, and by allowing him to receive, by allowing him to demand payment for this additional value, it's more likely that he'll be willing to do teshuvah to begin with. So once again, we have the shita. Here it's Shimon Elazar, that in concept we say shinoi, any sort of change, is not really reckoned with. It's still considered the original item, and therefore, in the case of kachash, we say he can just give it back to him as is. Next on the list is Rabbi Shmuel. Maihi, where is that? The Sani mitzvahs peya lahafresh min hakama. Ideally, a farmer fulfills his mitzvah of peya by leaving over, a corner of the field while it's still growing, while it's still standing, connected to the ground, uncut, for the poor people. And we know that that material is now available for all the poor people, and it's not owned, so it's like hefker, it's pater from maser. There's no obligation to separate tumas and maser. What if he overlooked it? Lo hifresh min hakama. By the time he remembered about peya, it was all cut off. Mafresh min ha'imrim. Okay, second best is set aside some bundles for the aniyim. Lo yifresh min ha'imrim. He didn't do it in that form. Mafresh min ha'kri. So he separates from his pile. Before the kri was sort of flattened out and smoothed over, which denotes the end of the farming process, of the harvesting process. In which case, at that point onward, the material is considered fully processed and is chayiv in trumas and raisers. So actually, before the miruach, before the flattening, the smoothing, it's no problem. He separates for the aniyim, he gives them the peya. Mirchay, if he got to the next point, that he totally concluded the process, so now he has no choice but to be ma'aser v'naisan loy. First he has to take up some meiser, because now all his material is chayiv and maser, and only then will he give it to the take the part that belongs to the aniyim, give it to them. And Rashi explains, otherwise the aniyim will lose out if they have to take off maser. So he first has to do the maser, and then he gives them what they deserve. But that's the end of the story. Meaning, according to this shita, Tana Kamma, your last chance is at this point, because the grain is still intact, it's still sort of unchanged, and therefore peya is still relevant. Here comes a shita, Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amru. So it was quoted in the name of Rabbi Shmuel. It's not at the end of the game. You still have a chance to do it even later. Even after it was ground and turned into dough, you can still do the peya. Why? Apparently because he holds that even though there was a drastic shinoi, drastic transformation that took place, it turned into a dough, totally not grain anymore, right? Still retains its identity and Peah is still applicable. So that concludes our list of opinions following this track that Shinoi, change, transformation, doesn't necessarily seriously alter the nature of the item. Now, Amalei Rav Papa Abaye. So Rav Papa turned to Abaye, who authored this list. Ichbel Kalani Tanoi. Do you mean to say all these Tanoim, trouble themselves? Lashminun Kebeis Shammai, to present a shita which really does not hold out in halacha l'maaseh, because if you recall, at the end of yesterday's discussion, we had a machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, right? So Beis Shammai was the one who held that shinoi is not kainah, shinoi doesn't change the item, right? And they spoke about the halacha of esnan. We see that shinoi doesn't really have an effect. So that was only Beis Shammai, but Beis Hillel, who we typically paskin like, held differently. We have to reckon with shinoi. So all these opinions are only following Beis Shammai, which is not halacha l'maaseh. Ichbel kol hanitanoi lashmin Beis Shammai. Amar Lei. So Abaye responds, Hachi ka'amri. They all mean to say le'nechleku Beis Shammai Beis Hillel b'davar zeh. Really, they all hold that there's no machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel in this regard, because if you remember, we had a brayso which says one way, other brayso disagrees. There's no names mentioned in the brayso, and there was Rav Yosef, Tani, Guria, and the Mispuruk. He's the one that sort of labeled the shitas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Apparently, it's not universal. Others disagree that there's even a machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel in this regard, and they all hold that even Beis Hillel would subscribe to this idea that we don't account for shinoi. Okay. So that concludes Abaye's presentation. I have a list of many opinions that, shinoi b'mkoymoi oimed, even after there is a change, it doesn't alter its status halachically. Amar Rava, comes Rava and opposes the whole thing, one by one. And who says that all these opinions subscribes to this idea? Dilma adkan like Amar Rabbi Yehuda Hassam, maybe, over there where Shimon Yehuda, when he spoke about the Reishis HaGeis, right? The wool that's meant to be given to the Kohen, after it was colored and dyed, it's too late. So maybe we can explain, Hassam, there it's different, Elabit Seva, because since it was only dyed, therefore, Reb Shimon says, don't worry about it. Because ultimately you can just remove the paint with a paint remover, some bleach. Therefore, it's not a permanent state, and therefore you don't have to reckon with it. And furthermore, on the list, let's go down the list. According to Beis Shammai, the item given to the woman over there, it's disqualified from carbon, but if it was transformed and processed, right, what happens? Beis Shammai say it's still possible. Maybe you can explain. You can attribute it to a special, the unique nature of that halacha, because it relates to bringing to the Beis Hamikdash. So we're more sensitive, since it's still, relates to the original item, even though it's sort of processed, but still it retains its psul. Maybe over there, only because it's going to the Beis Hamikdash and it's. It's mos. It's not fitting for the Beis Hamikdash. But otherwise, when it comes to other contexts and other halachas, maybe even according to Beis Shammai, shinoi is a new thing. Let's proceed. Va'ad kan like Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Hassam elini bracha. Likewise, Rabbi Eliezer says, with the challah, you're not meant to make a bracha. Maybe that's a special. Point with respect to bracha, because mishum dahavale mitzvah b'avera, because ultimately he's doing a mitzvah of challah by way of an avera. So although technically it's not the original item, but the fact is he got there. How did he get to the point of challah? Because he stole the wheat and he turned. So therefore it doesn't make sense to make a bracha. And then when we have the next case with the animal that was weakened, and we say no, you can still treat it like the original item. Maybe not only with there because it's not a permanent state. Hakchasha dehadar, says Rashi, an animal, you feed it a little bit and it gets back to its original state. So It's not a permanent situation, and therefore we don't have to reckon with it. But otherwise, if it would be a permanent situation, a permanent change, maybe you would reckon with it. And finally, we have the halacha of peya. Va'ad kan like Amar of Shemal Hasam Elin in peya, mishum dechsiv tazav yisera. So maybe it's only there by peya, where Shmuel says that you can still, give the peya in its dough form, because if you look at the psukim, we have the lashon tazav. Let go, give it to the anim. We have it repeated once and again. So that extra pasuk tells you, what? Even at this late point, at this late stage, peya is still applicable. So perhaps you can learn from there. There's a pasuk which says that shinoi is not, to be reckoned with. No, matnes anim shanim. Maybe, that's different. Giving gifts to the anim is a totally different halacha, and therefore you can't compare it to other things. Kedaboy Rabbi Yonasan, just as Rabbi Yonasan asked, Deboy Rabbi Yonasan, my tamid Rabbi Shmuel. Why is it that Rabbi Shmuel still applies peya at this late stage in its dough form? Is it mishum dekasava shine nekoine, because he holds that transforming an item, processing the item doesn't change its status? And that's a universal concept which applies elsewhere as well. No, typically you would reckon with shine. Here it's different. It's because the extra pasuk. So he wasn't sure. Now, why would we even think? Why would we even consider that it's a universal concept that shine is not koine? Because if that's the reason, then why the extra pasuk? Taziv Yisera the Kasr Rahman Alamali. Why does the pasuk have to repeat taziv to tell you that shinu is not? Well, that's a universal concept. V'su, another question. L'Rabbanon taziv Yisera the Kasr Rahman Alamali. I have another question. Rabbanon evidently don't go this far. They don't allow you to do peya from the dough. So what do they do with the extra taziv, which was just for that? Says the Gemara, Mibayle. So the answer would be like this. Why do we need the extra taziv? To teach us a new halacha. Look at this sanyu. Mafker karmai. Person has a vineyard and he renders it hefker. It's not mine. We know hefker is exempt from trumas and masros. Next morning he gets up and decides to take it back. He gets up in the morning, and he harvests his vineyard, it's back his. So what's the halacha? Even though, as Rashi points out, typically hefker is pater from everything, from trumas, from masros, and all the other gifts that you give to the aniyim, such as parrot, a fallen grape, idolus, a funny growing grape, shikha, anything forgotten, peya, the little section that you leave for them. All these things typically don't apply to hefker, but in this case, where you took it back right away, chayiv a parrot, uba idolus, uba shikha, uba peya, and Rashi explains because the extra taziv says that all these things are applicable when you so quickly took it back. Upater ben amasr, but when it comes to masr, it's pater, there's no special pasuk there. So that's what taziv would come to teach you, this special halacha. Amar Vidam Shmuel, halacha, Reb Shimon ben Elazar. So Shmuel says we follow Reb Shimon ben Elazar's shita. That's back with the animal that the Ganim stole. Even though it dropped in value, it was hukchash, it got weak, it looks like a totally different, animal, you still give it back as is. Shinoi, change, we don't reckon with it. It's still the original item. Really? Umi Amar Shmuel Hachi. Is that so that according to Shmuel, we follow this rule? Amar Shmuel himself told us, Ein shaman loy leganav, v'loy legazlan, ela lenazak. So this relates back to DAF Yud Aleph. The halacha was that if Reuven's animal attacked Shimon's animal, the nevela, that animal is considered the victim's property. In which case, the mazik, the attacker, just has to add to that till he gets to his final total. But the victim has to look after the animal. That animal, even if it drops in value, it's his problem. So when it comes to Nezakim, we are shaman, we evaluate, we appraise the value of the broken item, of the thing, and that goes to the Nizak. However, when it comes to a Ganav or a Gazlan, you don't do that, you don't make deals. You stole an animal, give back an animal. Right? That's the halacha. You have to restore what you did, what you took. So, bottom line is we see that, if a fellow steals an animal, right, and it died in his care, under his watch, he can't just give him back the animal. He has to give him back a new, fresh animal. Why? Apparently because shinoi, that change, is kaina. So now it's the ganos. You can't just give it back. You have to give him back a full animal. So Bishlam Rava the Amar Ki Ka'amar of Shimon Lazar Hasa Bakasha the Hadar. So 1 second. According to Rava, who just a minute ago told us that why Rav Shimon Lazar says you can give back the weakened animal. That's only because it's a temporary weakness, it's not a permanent state, and therefore it's not called Ishinu. So like Kasha, so that would be a very simple answer to our question. Ki Ka'amar Halacha. When does Shmuel say that the halacha is Reb Shimon Lazar? That what? That we don't reckon with change. The Shina b'mkam ya'imid. The Shina sort of stays intact. Ba'achasha the hadar. When it's just a temporary weakness that can be undone. The other halacha of Shmuel, that the Ganav can't just give back the dead animal. Ba'achasha the hadar. It's talking about a permanent loss of value. It died, etc. A totally different context. But according to Abaye's approach, that Kika Amar Shimon Lazar Bakasha Lehada, that Shimon Lazar says Shinoi is not a factor, that's even when it's a permanent Shinoi. That was Abaye's approach to the whole sugya. Bakasha Lehada Kamar. So, if on the one hand Shmuel says we follow that opinion, Shinoi is ignored. Michael Amema, now we're stuck. How could Shmuel elsewhere tell us that Shinoi is not ignored? Abaye had a different version of Shmuel. Amar Vidam Shmuel. Amru Halacha Reb Shimon Lazar, that there are others that presented, that subscribed to Reb Shimon Lazar, and that's how they applied the halacha. But he himself didn't agree with that. Others do. I don't. Lately, he himself didn't agree with it because he held that Shini is koine. Amar Rav Chiya Amar Rav Yechna. Dvar Torah gzela nishtanis chazeres b'eineh. You should know that minat Torah, even if the stolen item underwent a drastic transformation, you can just return it as is. So he doesn't hold of Shini koine at all, and he has a pasuk. Shenamar v'hishav gzela. You return the stolen item. Asher gazal. Extra expression. Asher gazal tells you in whichever circumstance it is. Whichever state it is, give it back. Well, hold it. What about our Mishnah? Right? Right? You go back to its original value. You don't have to, give, current value. Mishum takanos hashaf. You're right. In the Mishnah, clearly you see Shini is kind of, it's only the Rabbanan to encourage the repenters, but it's not Minat Torah. Asks the Gemara, who's speaking? Rabbi Yehuda, right? Umi Amar Rabbi Yehuda Hachi. Is that so? Rabbi Yehuda tell us halacha kistam Mishnah. We're always meant to paskin, follow the anonymous Mishnah. What's anonymous? We have a Mishnah in Maseches Chulin regarding the Reishas Hageiz that we discussed yesterday. The portion of wool which is given to the Kohen. Tanana, we have a Mishnah. By the time he got around to it, he dyed it. It's potter. You don't have to give it to the Kohen. So clearly, Shinoi is a factor on the table. Amar Lahu. So this person responded. Homer the Rabbanon, one of the Chachamim. What was his name? Rabbi Yaakov Shmei. It was explained to me from Rabbi Yehuda that Kigayin was speaking Shegazal Eitzim Meshupin Va'asan Kelim. The Havale Shinoi HaChoyze Libriyasai. That really Rabbi Yehuda holds that a proper, permanent Shinoi is a factor. Right? Such as the wool that was dyed. It's over. The Mishnah by us, which discusses some sort of Shinoi, he took the Eitzim, he made Kelim, on which Rabbi Yehuda says you should know, Minat Torah, it's not really a Shinoi, it's only the Rabbanan, because we're speaking about a temporary transformation. And we discussed yesterday, he had Eitzim Meshupin, he stole finished wood, sanded wood, okay? And he just formed it into Kelim, which can be dismantled and undone It's like, you buy the IKEA boxes, furniture in a box, right? And you go and assemble it. That's what happened. So that's a type of shinui that's not called shinui minat Torah. It's a temporary shinui. So there, minat Torah, you're not koine unless because of takanas hashav, and to make it easier for the ganav, the chacham say that you don't have to return it as is, just repay him the original value of the raw material. Continues the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan. On this topic of the gazlanim doing teshuva, where is long to look at? To try to encourage it, and therefore we say like this: Hagazlonin umalvi beribis. So these robbers, all these people who lend with interest, all these fellows shichziru who want to come back and repay their victims, ein mekabel mehem. We don't accept it. We'll see in a minute. V'amakabel mehem, a person does accept ein ruach chachamim noichem. He's no good. The spirit of chachma, of chasidus, of piety, is not resting within him. That's not the way to conduct oneself. Why? What's going on? What's wrong with, right? I'll explain to you. This wasn't always. But Bimei Rebbe, in the time of Rebbe HaKadosh, Nishnis Mishnazu, this halacha was presented. Why? It was based on a story, the Sanyu, Maasa Be'echad, Ba'adam Echad, Shebikesh Lasis Tshuva. So we have this fellow who was a known robber, right? Decides one day, I want to do tshuva. Amalei Yishta. His wife turns to him, Reika, empty head. Well, what do you think? You think it's so easy? Mata Roitz, Mata Isa Tshuva. If you're really, really serious about the tshuva, guess what? You got to sell everything you own, even your belt. I feel even your belt doesn't belong to you. And that held him back. He was so discouraged, he despaired. At that moment, you're not supposed to accept from these people. Let them offer, but don't accept. A person does accept payment. It's not the way he's supposed to do it. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Their father passed away, but he left behind money that he had accepted as interest. So he took it inappropriately. Even though the kids know where it's coming from, there's no obligation to return it. And Rashi explains because this was certainly a tremendous shinoi. There was a change of possession, of hands, etc. It went from the father. They don't have to return. Now, in Hudaloi, so they have no obligation to do so. But clearly, if their father was still here, he would have to return the money he took inappropriately. So you see, he's chayav to return. Says the Gemara, you're right. Truthfully, the father wouldn't either have the obligation to return the money because of the takana that we said in the name of Reb. So why does the Mishnah focus on them if it really applies to the father as well? Because that's the context of the Mishnah. Because the next part of the Mishnah went on to say, let's say the father left behind a stolen cow or a garment, something which is visibly stolen, which retains its identity. It's a davar mesuyim. Rashi says davar hanika l'rabim. Right? People point to it and say, "Oh, this is the stolen car." In this case, it's different. They have to return it to the victim to protect the honor of their father. So the father's not bad mouth. So therefore, in this case, it's different. So once we focus on them, that's why the first part of the Mishnah also discussed them. But really, even the father himself wouldn't be chayav to pay back the ribbis. Asks the Gemara, why are you so concerned about protecting their father's honor? Why do they have to return the item to protect their father? This father is not really worthy of honor at all. He's a robber. Ikri kan, we can apply the pasuk. Nasi ba'amcha lo yisar. Don't curse. Say nasi ba'amcha. A prominent person within your community. Ba'isa ma'ase amcha. Only a person who conforms to the communal standards of conduct. Right. So it doesn't apply to this robber father. Just as Reb Pinchas tells us in Mesachas Chagiga regarding a different halacha, B'shas Tshuva was speaking on the father who did Tshuva during his lifetime. Achanami as well was speaking B'shas Tshuva, he really did Tshuva, so he's back into the community. So he's deserving of honor. Well, the Asa Tshuva, if he really did Tshuva, what's the cow doing in his corral? My boy Gabe, he should return the car. He did Tshuva, but ultimately he didn't get a chance to actually physically return the item before he died. So we have to look after his honor, and we have to do it for him. Tashma, here comes another raya, akasha. You're telling me that the Gazlonim don't really have to go and return their items. Tashma Gazlonim Umava Beribis Ava Bisha Gavu Machzirin. Even though they collected, we give it back. What does that mean? Gazlonim, when it comes to a robber, Maisha Gavu Ika. What do you mean it was collected? Igazel Gazel. If they stole, they stole. They didn't steal. They didn't steal. Well, what's going on? Right? They didn't steal. They're not Gazlonim. Ela Gazlonin. Rather, the Bryce is meant to be read like this. It's all the same person. Ha Gazlonin. What's an example of inappropriate collection? Umayni. Who are these people? Malve Bribias. They lent with interest. So we call them Gazlonim because they took money inappropriately. Even though they already took the money, they took the interest, they have to return it. Clearly, there's a chiyuv to return the ribis, which is inconsistent with what we're saying all along. Answer is Amri machzirun. Yeah, they have to offer the victim back his money, but we don't accept it from them. So what's the point of going through the act? Why do I have to offer the money? In any case, we're not getting it from. We're not taking it back. They have to show, they have to display the sincerity that Hashem sees that they're serious, that they really want to give it back, but ultimately we don't take it. Tashmai comes another kasha. Harayim. So we have these shepherds. Rashi says typically they're dishonest because they take their flock to other people's property. Vagaboin. So these tax collectors who head tax collectors who were not acting honestly. The customs collectors as well. Tshuvash and kasha. It's very hard for them to do teshuva because how do they know? They can't identify their victims. It was years and years of dishonesty. So if they happen to know the identity of one of their victims, they should go and try to repay that. So clearly, repayment is required. Answers the Gemara, Amri machzirin ve'mekav mehen. Although they offer repayment, we don't accept it. So why do they do it? To fulfill their heavenly obligation. If that's the case, that we're not even taking it from them, amai tshuvas and kasha. So what's the big deal? Why is it so difficult? They're just offering, we're not taking it anyways. Another question. So the first question was, if they're not really obligated to return, so what's the big deal? Number two, the Brisa continues and says that the unidentified victims. How do you address that? They use money and they apply it to communal needs. They sponsor local libraries, right? For example, they make water holes and wells and reservoirs to benefit the community. Ultimately, Rashi says they hope to reach out to all their victims. Everybody will benefit from it. It's sort of like a repayment. So clearly repayment is required. The answer is like this. It depends on what point in history we're speaking about. Remember, it was a takana in the day of Rebbe. But before Rebbe, they had to repay. Kan, kodim takana. All these are speaking before the takana, so repayment was in place. Kan lacha takana, but the other halacha is speaking after the takana, in which case they were exempt. But now that Rav Nachman came and told us, this whole takana, don't accept repayment, is only when the actual original stolen item is no longer here. Right? So then it's difficult for them to go and find, So we forego repayment. But if the actual stolen item is still here, of course they should repay it. So that being the case, we have a much more simple terror to these kashas. Even if both brides are speaking nowadays, after the takana. Depends if the item is here or not. Like kash. Kan b'gzeila kayemes. If the stolen item is here, of course they have to repay it. Kan b'gzeila she'ena kayemes. B'she'en gzeila kayemes. If the item is gone, then they're exempt from compensation. Asks the Gemara 1 second. Remember that story that triggered the whole takana? Involved a Gazlan, whose wife told him, well, look at your belt. If the item is still there, so why does the Gemara tell us it's takana, he doesn't have to return it? Go ahead and return the lost belt, the stolen belt. My avnet, when we speak about an avnet, dmei avnet, she didn't mean the actual belt. She meant, all your... you have to sell your belt to compensate your victims for all the items that you stole from them which are no longer here. That's what she meant. Here's the Gemara. So now you tell me like this. The stolen car is here, of course you have to return it, even nowadays. If it's no longer here, we'll give you a break. If the Gzela is here, there's no takana to exempt you. You have a kash on that, very marish. You know the famous story with the beam, right? The Mishnah there, the Gzela Kayemasi, it was intact, it's in his house. With Tanan ala marish ha-gazel, shebana bebira, she'itol damav. There was a special takana. If you built in the stolen beam into your house, into the bira, into the mansion, you don't have to demolish your house. The victim has to be happy with compensation. Why? For this reason. To make it easier for the Baal Teshuvah. Why does he get away with just paying value? You should give him back the beam. The beam is here. Oh, it's not really called here. It's not practical. Shani Hasam, it's very different. In that case, the kivan the ikab seda the bira, in order to get the beam out, you have to demolish the house. Shavyor Rabbanan, because the lesser Rabbanan treat it as though it's no longer here. We ignore the fact that it's actually here. It's not really practically accessible, so therefore we treat it as though it's gone. But Rashi points out, here you don't get a pass. You don't say, well, it's gone on pot because of takana, because the fact that it is here. So on the one hand, we're not going to require you to demolish your house, but you still have to pay compensation. So we sort of have three levels here. So before the takana, of course, everybody has to repay. After the takana, it depends. If the item is here and accessible, pay it back. Otherwise, pater. But if it's here and not accessible, then you don't have to pay back the item, rather its value. Okay, we started with a list of Abaye, many opinions would disregard the Shinui factor. Rava had a response for each one. Why, they all hold as such, but theoretically they would hold Shinui is to be reckoned with, but these cases are different. We discussed Shinui, permanent Shinui, which is a Shinui min HaTorah, as opposed to a temporary Shinui, which is only Shinui D'Rabbanan. And why do we reckon with that Shinui? Because of Takanas HaShavim. That led us into the whole concept of Takanas HaShavim. We try to encourage Teshuvah and make it easier for you. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.